This might be the first not-so-fun part of playing the ukulele. Tuning your ukulele might be a little bit difficult at first, but it's important that you know how to do it. First of all, if your ukulele doesn't sound good, then you're probably not going to want to play it. So I recommend an electric tuner. This one right here is a snark tuner. You can probably find one at your local music store. If not, you can order them on Amazon or Musician's Friend or whatever your preference may be. Expect to pay around $20. I usually look for deals, bargains. You can buy 3 and get some sort of discount, and I like having one with each of my instruments, so I never forget a tuner. So keep an eye out for those sorts of deals as you're looking. There are many different kinds of tuners. These are the ones that I just prefer because they're really, really handy. One might have come with your ukulele. You might have one lying around the house already, and you just want to use that. That's totally fine. You can also download apps on your phone, which are tuners. I haven't yet found one that I personally like that much, but they are available. Some people do have good luck with them, so definitely download some apps. Try out some free ones. See what sounds best or what works best for you. The thing that I really like about this is I can clip it right to the head of my ukulele, so I could be in the middle of a performance, and it's right there, ready as soon as I might need it. An electric tuner is a wonderful thing that can keep us in tune with great accuracy, but it's also important to develop a good ear. The first thing our ear will tell us is if the notes sound pleasant or not. Now, I don't know what your ears are telling you, but they are telling me that this ukulele is out of tune. Next, I've got to remember all the names of my strings, so I know what to tune each string to. So we're just gonna go over that again. So this string right here, the string that is closest to the floor, that's your first string, and that is an A string. This string right here, the second one up, is your second string, and that string is tuned to an E note. So that one right there is an E. Third up from the floor is a C note, C string. And our fourth up from the floor is our G string. So that's also the one that's closest to the ceiling. You can think of it that way too. So closest to the floor is our first string, A, then second string, E, then third string, C, and then fourth string, G. How do I know which way I need to adjust the string? I've got my tuner on there. I pluck. I've got the tuner on now, and I pluck the string, and I know that, okay, this is supposed to be an A, and then I pluck it, and it reads G sharp. And now it reads C. So what am I supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to turn it? Well, we're going to need a little bit of context first. So let's take a look at the musical alphabet. Here is the musical alphabet. We've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and as you can see here, it starts back over at A, B, C, D, and so forth, and so on. We could go in reverse alphabetical order as well, so the note that comes before this A would be a G, and before that an F, so forth and so on. And it would keep going in either direction for whatever the range of your instrument happens to be. A piano's got a pretty big range, a ukulele's got a bit smaller of a range, but it's still going to go up and down just like so. When we are moving from left to right, that means we're moving in alphabetical order, we would refer to that as up. So I might say I have to tune up to an A if I'm starting from a lower note, like a G, for instance. That means if I'm moving from right to left in reverse alphabetical order, I'm going to say I'm moving down. So if a string is tuned too high, I would say I have to tune down to the target note. So in order to tune up, I need to tighten that string. I need to make that string tighter. And if I'm tuning down, then I need to loosen that string. I need to loosen it up. All right, but that's not all. If we're looking at a piano, these letters here would represent the white keys. The black keys fit in between some of these letters.
These black keys each have two different names. Don't worry about why just yet. I only mention it now because depending on what kind of tuner you have, a note might read G sharp or A flat, and they are the exact same note. C sharp is the same thing as D flat. F sharp is the same thing as G flat. All of these notes have two different names. Again, don't worry about why just yet. We'll talk about that a little later, but just keep this chart handy and use it as a reference for when you're tuning up. So if my A string is reading G sharp, I know that's not the note that I want. I want an A. So I'm going to find G sharp on my chart here, and then I'm going to look for the closest A note. Now, usually when a string is out of tune, it hasn't wandered off too far from the note it should be. So if I'm on this G sharp, I'm not going to want to tune down to an A. There's an A just above it, and chances are that is what I should be tuned to. So I'm going to go to this A right next door, just to the right of the note on the chart, and that means I need to make the note higher in pitch, which means I have to tighten the string.
All right, so let's tune this ukulele here. So I've got it sitting on the table here. I've got the body down here out of the shot. So you're just seeing the head of the ukulele with my snark tuner right here. Now, I'm going to be starting with the A string, which is connected to this peg right here. I'm going to pluck that and see what it says. Okay, so it says G sharp. It's a little above a G sharp. You can see it bouncing into the yellow on the right-hand side there. So that means it's a little bit tuned a little bit higher than a perfect G sharp. I'm going to look at my chart now because I know that that's not supposed to be a G sharp. That's supposed to be an A. So I'm looking at my chart, and I found a G sharp on the chart, and I'm going to go to the closest A, which is just a little bit above it. So I need to tune this string up. I need to make this string tighter. So I need to go from here, G sharp, up to an A. So I'm down here, and I've got that note. So this is the peg that I need to turn. Now I've got the ukulele flipped upside down, so I can't remember which way I'm supposed to turn this peg to make it go up, to make the string tighter. So I could look at it and kind of deduce by which way the string is wound up there, but I'm going to just do it the easy way and just turn the peg. Okay, that was up. All right, great. If I had turned it the other way, I could hear that pitch going down. I'm going to do it again. Point being, don't be afraid to just turn that peg. Just see which way you're supposed to be going. Because even if I went a little bit lower, like I just did there, now I'm all the way down at a G, I know which direction I need to go to tighten that string. So I'm going to try and keep plucking that string as I turn this knob. Notice I'm doing like little baby turns. Just little turns, just enough that I can hear that the note is moving. The reason that I'm doing that is, watch the screen here. I'm going to pluck the string. Okay, and I get that reading, that A, but then it starts bouncing around. Now it's reading D, and now there's nothing there. The tuner is picking up on the vibrations of the ukulele. And that's what's giving us the reading. So as those vibrations slow down, the tuner loses information to tell us what note we're on. So I need to keep plucking this string if I want to know where I'm at. So I'm going to just keep resetting it basically by plucking the string. Now, as I'm getting closer to that A, notice how it's reading A, but it's still in the red over to the left there a bit. So that means it's still tuned a little too low. I need to keep tuning up until we reached that blue bar right in the center there. There we go. Almost there. I've still got a little bit of red. There we go. Okay, I'm in tune. Now, if I went a little too far, that's what it would look like. So it would read A, but it's in the yellow. That means it's too high. So I need to turn down a little bit. So I'm going to turn back down. There we go. And kind of make little tweaks up and down as needed to get that just right there.
So that was me talking through the tuning of the A string. Once I get to the tuning part, I'm just going to tune without talking, just so you can hear the instrument and what I'm doing with it as I'm tuning to the correct note. So I'm moving on to this string right here, which is the E string. Okay, and it's tuned to an F. I'm looking at my chart. I can see that the E, the closest E, is just one key down from that F. So I know that I need to loosen this string. So I'm going to do just that, and I'm not going to talk as I do it, just so you can hear what it sounds like as I'm tuning. So here we go. Cool, and there I am. So I got it from the F all the way down to the E, all the way by like a half step, just a little bit. But there it is. I'm going to grab a different tuner so we can take a look at the other two strings and see where they're at. Okay, here I'm going to attach a different clip-on tuner. This one's a Joyo, I suppose that's how you pronounce it. This came with my banjolele, which is very snazzy. So I'm going to clip that on, just so you can see that there is a variety in how you look at these tuners and how they read. So I'm going to hold that button down to turn it on. And there we are. Now, this is an interesting one. This is a tuner that can cause a little bit of confusion. I'm going to see if I can get this way up close to the video here, so you can see what's going on. You can see that little UC written at the bottom there, that little highlighted thing. So that is a particular setting, so it's going to read specific notes. It's going to be looking for very specific notes. I push it again, and UD gets highlighted. C, G, B, V, and back to UC, and so forth. So these are different settings that are going to be looking for different notes. This is a ukulele in C tuning, so I want that UC right there. That is what I want to be looking for. The different settings are going to be looking for different notes depending on the tuning of their corresponding instruments. Make sure you check out the manual if you do have a ukulele. If you do have a tuner that looks like this. Take a look at the manual and make sure that it is set to the correct thing. The snark tuners are nice and simple. There's not a whole lot going on here. You know, you've just got your on button. There are a couple setting buttons in the back. You can like fine tune what kind of tuning you're going to do, you want to use, but you shouldn't ever have to touch those as long as when it comes out of the package it is programmed correctly. You shouldn't have to worry about it, but definitely take a look at the manuals if you have any questions. Okay, so I'm gonna go with the C string next here and see what that looks like. So it's this peg right here, so I'm going to pluck that string and see what it reads. Okay, it is reading a C, but it's just a little low, so I just need to tune that C up a little bit. So here we don't have that color distinction like we did on the snark. The snark, if it was tuned too low, we would see a red bar. And if it's tuned too high, we would have seen a yellow bar. Here, it's all the same color. All we're looking at is just that little indicator right there. So we are on the correct note. We don't have to worry about going to a different string, or excuse me, going to a different note. So I don't need my chart. I just need to tune this C up a little bit. Oh, and that's the wrong way. I can hear it going down, so I'm going to go the other direction. There we are. So this particular one lights up with green when we are perfectly in tune. It's a little bit off. Now, this is another interesting thing and something to watch out for a tuner like this, because it is set for UC
a C-tuned ukulele, it is only looking for those notes. So notice how when I played that C string, and it read C but low. Notice how it's like just hanging out down there. It's not changing letters. It just made me think while I was tuning up the way that was looking, and it's because this tuner is only going to read the note that it's looking for. So it can tell this is the third string of my ukulele, and it's supposed to be a C, but it is not a C. So it's just indicating that this is supposed to be a C, and I'm too low. That's all this is telling me. Whereas, if I switched this back over to the snark, turn that on, now it is reading a B, and it is reading like it's tuned very low. It's barely a B. So this is telling me the specific note. No matter what the note is, this is telling me what that note is and how in tune that note is. Whereas this other tuner here, this Joyo, is reading C because that's what it's supposed to be, and that's all that it's telling me. It's not giving me any indication of where it actually is. It knows it's supposed to be a C, and it's too low. So in that regard, this is a pretty helpful tuner. It can be a little bit confusing, especially if you're not paying really close attention to how the ukulele or how the tuner is set. But it is really nice. You're not going to get confused by all those different letters, which is what the chart is great for. But it's nice that this tuner will just say, all right, this is supposed to be a C. Just get to that C. Turn up to get to that C. Or if it was too high, it would just say turn down to get to that C. Let's see what the G string is tuned to. Now, another thing that I want to mention as I'm doing this is I am trying my best when I pluck one of these strings, like when I pluck that C, for instance, kind of just using my thumb like that, but I'm also trying to mute these other strings. I'm trying to keep those other strings from vibrating, because if I were to just pluck any one of these strings, can't really hear it, but all the other strings, the other three strings on this instrument are also vibrating. And that can affect what the tuner reads. It can confuse the tuner. Like the snark, it can get really confused if more than one string is vibrating. It might bounce back and forth. Let's see if I can make this this tuner bounce back and forth if I pluck two strings. So I just plucked the E and the A. And it's just not happy with it. It read E at first, and then it just said, you know what? You're not using this thing right. So that's just another thing to watch out for. Especially as you're starting, you might not have the coordination to make sure that you're like muting some strings and plucking the other ones. So don't worry too much if you don't have that down right away. But it's just something to be aware of. Let's see. So let's check out the G string, which is this one right here. I'm going to pluck that, and we'll see what the tuner reads. Okay, it's G, but it's low. It's supposed to be G. Now I'm curious, what is that actually tuned to? It sounds pretty low for a G. F sharp, so it's not too far off. If I look at my chart, F sharp isn't too far off the mark. It's just one key. It's the black key that comes just before the G note, so I don't have far to go. Oops, I'm hitting some other strings there. There we are. So I've got that little arrow that my screen turned green, and that little arrow is my little hand, I guess it's kind of like a clock hand, is pointing straight up at that little triangle. So again, your tuner might look a little bit different than this one. So it might not be a one-to-one comparison if you don't have this specific Joyo tuner or this specific snark tuner. It might look a little bit different. I've got some various different kinds of tuners. Snark makes a variety of tuners themselves. For instance, I've got this snark tuner, which is a little bit different. This one is a slightly fancier one. It's got a matte black kind of rubbery covering on it, a little bit more durable feeling, which is pretty fun. But I really like the screen on this one. This one is a slightly less expensive. You can see it doesn't. Oh, got a little cat hair on there. It is not quite that nice matte rubbery matte black finish on it, so this is a little bit less expensive of a tuner. It still works basically the same way as the fancy snark. This one is out of batteries right now. I need to replace the batteries. That is a fairly easy thing to do. There's just a little panel on the back here. There it is. And it takes one of these watch batteries. This is a CR 2032. Anyway, that's our alternative snark there. And now this ukulele should be just about in tune. Doesn't sound bad. When I first string up a ukulele, if there are fresh strings on there, it's going to take a little while for those strings to settle and stay in tune. Likewise, if I haven't tuned my ukulele in a while and I get it up to tune, or the strings are getting old, it might not stay in tune as nicely as before. So usually after I go through all the strings, especially if it's way out of tune like this one, I'll just go back and double check and make sure everything's good. We're also changing the tension. The tighter the strings are on the ukulele, the more the more pressure or tension it's exerting across the neck and body. The bridge down here is holding these strings down. They're tied on there, and then the tuning pegs up here are held down. So those strings are pulling the head and the bridge together a lot, and the tighter the strings are, the more tension there is. So that, in and of itself, by the time you get to tune your last string, that could have changed the tuning of your other strings as well. So I always like to go back and just double check and make sure, and then give it a strum. There's a lot going on here, I know, but be patient, stick with it. You're going to get faster at doing this every day, and it'll become second nature before you know it. And if you do tune your instrument every day, which I highly recommend, you'll probably only have to make tiny little tweaks. So it's not going to take much to keep these little fellas in tune.